And welcome once again to another episode of the Horizon Roundtable. I am Bob McDonald, and you can find me on Twitter at Bob McDonald. And joining me, of course, is my co-host Matt Dudek.
Hello there.
And Matt has a new Twitter handle, so we're gonna this obviously requires some explanation a little further on down the show. You're at Horizon Matt now, correct?
Yes, I am.
So I guess in one way I'm happy that you've embraced the whole Horizon Roundtable co-hosting thing. At the same time, I'm a little concerned, but again, we'll get into that a little later. But
we'll tie it in.
Yeah,
absolutely.
At Horizon Matt now, so yeah, great. So everywhere I have Grizz Talk OU, I got to change it now. Thanks a lot.
Sorry, not sorry-ish.
I have this feeling, but one thing that has not changed is the Twitter account for the Horizon Roundtable, which always you can find at Horizon RT. So, man, you know what? And I was I was very confused up until Saturday because we're actually recording this on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, because there's a couple games that are going on that may or may not affect us. But before Saturday's games, Detroit Mercy notwithstanding, Detroit Mercy just didn't want to conform. Rat bastards. Teams 3 through 7 were 5-5.
Yep.
So it was Milwaukee, Green Bay, Youngstown State, UIC, and Cleveland State. All of them were 5-5. Freaking miracle.
That's a party waiting to happen.
That's probably the most boring. I mean, they're all 5-5, so it's got to be,
I mean, the reality is that it confirms exactly what many of us have been saying for weeks, months, all that, which is this league's not very good. We're just going to kind of beat each other up for a long time. It really just confirms that we were right. This league's not very good, and we're just going to kind of all split with each other back and forth a whole lot.
But again, this was interesting because again. This is not a new phenomenon because this is exactly what happened last year. Not exactly what happened last year. No, we didn't have a point in time where five teams were 5-5. I mean, we didn't get to that level of freaking craziness. But still, I mean, it seemed like those middle teams were really kind of just jammed in there, and we did get a little bit of a breakup on Saturday because. UIC beat Cleveland State and Youngstown State beat IUPUI. Youngstown State beat IUPUI and didn't need to do it on the last second shot.
What a day!
What a day at the House of Heart Attacks because the Youngstown State UIC game, of course, had to go to overtime because of course it did.
Well, why wouldn't it?
And UIC was a whisker away from being UIC and Cleveland State was a whisker away from being opposite what it is now. Cleveland State could very well be 6-5 in a statement I don't think I'd ever thought I'd say, at least not since July. But they continue to surprise me.
They're doing great. I mean, we've talked about them quite a bit. It's great coaching. You got to give that credit. Anytime.
That is true. So I mean. Yeah, if not for they just could not hit a free throw to save their lives last night. Yesterday afternoon, they could not hit a free throw to save their lives. It was so bad. I mean, seriously, it was near the end. Basically, anybody who could miss a free throw missed a free throw, including unfortunately, and then right at the end, Trago Million, who has actually won Cleveland State a couple of games at the last second. Had 2 shots to hit free throws, missed them both, and then goes down the field, goes down the court, and fouls UIC, and they get the 2 free throws and they win. I can't really bang on Trago Million too much. Again, like I said, he's won Cleveland State a couple of games, so he kind of gets a pass for not making. It wasn't his entire. I mean, again, it wasn't all him. Everybody and their grandma, like I said, nobody could hit a free throw on Saturday. And I think if they'd actually hit some free throws on Saturday, they probably would have been. This wouldn't even been. They wouldn't even been in the question who was going to win this game.
Right.
But that Cleveland State is in the situation that they're in to be able to win games is a miracle in and of itself. So, And you know, and again, the free throw thing is kind of strange because up until the UIC game, they had done infinitely better shooting at the foul line. I mean, they were pretty lights out. I mean, they were shooting 90% plus from the free throw line the 3 games prior. So I don't know what to tell you. But
Yeah.
well, so on the flip side though, we have a situation with the USC. And by the way, a programming note, Mark Forden, who has a new website out there called Numbers Don't Lie. We're going to actually have him on next week because his website is all about all things Chicago, you know, the Chicago music scene, specifically the Chicago sports scene, and we are definitely going to be talking to him about UIC in particular. Because of the fact that, you know, he actually, you know, UIC is kind of in his sphere of influence. So yeah, Mark Forden, who is the founder of Numbers Don't Lie. Let me go ahead and get give you the. You can actually go to numbersdon'tlie23.com. I mean, for obvious reasons, that's where he's at. But we'll definitely have Mark on next week. I should mention also the week after we've been having this discussion. But anyway,
23. Is he a big LeBron fan?
He's in Chicago, dude. It's MJ.
I'm kidding.
It's always MJ. Dude.
Yeah, I got it. It was.
So, but on the flip side, if you look at UIC, and UIC inexplicably, UIC is, I don't want to say they pulled their fat out of the fire, and it seems like this seems familiar to me because it seems like they did this last year too, where they completely underachieved for like most of the for nearly all of the non-conference and the very beginning of the conference schedule. Seems like they did that. And now all of a sudden we're seeing the UIC we were supposed to see the whole time. Cleveland, yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, not, and I don't want to discount the fact that Cleveland State is not, you know, Cleveland State is absolutely, you know, a surprise team, and I don't want to discount their, you know, their performance. So, but yeah, if you look at UIC, they've won, and you know, they and it's all based on, I want to say, the Wright State win. I mean, the fact that they lost to Detroit Mercy now seems like an aberration, really. I mean, they've won 5 of the last 6, so. And I've alluded to this before, this whole possibility of the maybe, where maybe UIC gets it together enough that Steve McLean keeps his job. Now we're in now that they're 6-5 in the conference, now the maybe is starting to linger a little bit again. So I don't know.
I mean, this is what USC did last year too. They didn't play well. Then they kind of made a run. They ended up 5th and going into the tournament. They lost in the first round to Green Bay. That's kind of been UIC. That's who they've been.
And I want to so with that said, I really want to. And again, the Detroit Mercy thing, if not for a LeGrand buzzer beater, we're talking about UIC. We're talking about UIC rattling off 6 straight wins. If not for LeGrand's buzzer beater at Detroit Mercy, if not for Trey Gomillion missing a couple of free throws, you know, it's a whole different story. It's a weird thing because it's been pretty convincing. And luck has really been on UIC's side too, it looks like. Because again, I mean, not necessarily this past weekend it has. Last weekend, obviously not with the Detroit Mercy buzzer beater, but I really think we're really setting it up for this week where you have. I think this week is going to be the big test for them because you're going to have Milwaukee. They're going to be at home. They're playing Milwaukee and they're playing Green Bay. So I think both of those games are going to be kind of the key for them. I think that's going to be the make or break moment in their season, I think.
I think they're going to split. I just can't tell you which way.
With Milwaukee and Green Bay, it's so hard to tell. You're absolutely, I mean, I don't want to say they're interchangeable, Milwaukee and Green Bay, but the way they've been playing, it really kind of seems like it.
It seems unfair to their fans. They've got both sets have great fans. I don't want to like talk down, but you're right. They're interchangeable. Like, they're just kind of Wisconsin at this point to me. Like,
I mean,
you
yeah,
got
but
Wisconsin.
I mean, their fortunes have risen and fallen in terms of the conference schedule. Their fortunes have risen and fallen at almost the exact same pace, and it's a head scratcher. It really is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's yeah. I mean, and again in Milwaukee, it's crazy because then we actually also have to talk about the fact that Loud Love got ejected the other day.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see it, so I don't
I
have a
didn't
lot
either.
to put in on it.
Chad Knodel actually pointed it out to me. I don't know what I think it was taking the dogs out or something, because I actually did have the game on. I totally missed it. Because I was flipping between that and the I was sincerely flipping between that and the I was flipping between that and the Green Bay game, Northern Kentucky for Green Bay game. Both of those games, both of those teams, Green Bay put a scare into Northern Kentucky, but Northern Kentucky couldn't close the deal. So they're going to have to work that out. Absolutely.
I was a little differently occupied on Friday.
I'm sure you were. But yeah, but as for, but the Wright State Milwaukee game, Wright State basically had that game pretty much in hand. And then, I'm going to have to look at the replay on that one. But yeah, Loudon Love got hit with a flagrant 2, and he was gone. I think it was the 8:57 mark. And then Milwaukee went on a run, and a run. So
I guess my question is going to be, because that flagrant 2 can be reviewed by the league. Is there any further repercussions for him, or is he just going to be done for that game and everyone moves on and they get their wing?
I have no idea. That's a good question. And again, we're recording on Sundays, and Wright State is going to be playing Green Bay at 2:00, 2 Eastern, 1 Central, and I'm not really sure if I'm not really 100% if that's gonna have long-standing repercussions. I guess we'll find out.
By the time they listen to this, they'll have that answer, and we'll look silly for even not knowing.
Hey, I'm good with that.
Used to it.
We've looked sillier for worse.
Just another day, right? Like
we've looked sillier for worse. I'm not too concerned about that one.
I'm checking Love's Twitter right now. He's just retweeted stuff for the game today. Nothing. I didn't expect him to say he wasn't playing, but everything seems normal. So I'm going to assume he's playing.
That's crazy that it's crazy that he got hit with a flagrant 2. So I like I said, I'm gonna have to rewatch that game. Maybe before the Super Bowl or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, that seems like a thing that you probably could be. Yeah, that it's weird that, but yeah, again, after he left, all of a sudden, Milwaukee got some life, and once that happened, and again, you saw this at the beginning of the season with Northern Kentucky, where against Green Bay, where Green Bay beats Northern Kentucky right at the outset, and they almost lost again. Green Bay almost beat them again. So it's not. We've been saying this for a while. First of all, obviously, Wright State has a 2-game lead in the conference, but they're not gonna. Like I said, I never said they were gonna. It's impossible to be perfect in this league. They're 9-1, so obviously they're not either. I still think they've got maybe a loss or two still in them. I don't know if it's this weekend, and if it is this weekend with against Milwaukee, I'll be greatly surprised. And if you're listening to this during the week and Milwaukee does in fact beat Wright State, then I'll look even smarter. But which I can live with, obviously.
Again, I'm
But yeah,
used to it.
yeah. But we're used to it. We're used to making crazy predictions and it panning out. But yeah, but the bottom line with Wright State is that they've it does. I don't want to say does it really matter because they've got such a lead in the conference. I mean, anything can happen in this conference, and everything has happened in this conference. But the way Wright State has played, Loud and Love Flagrant 2 notwithstanding, it's really been they've really been kind of that team. Now, do they, like I said, are they going to sustain it the whole time? Probably not. I mean, they're going to have they may have one or two games where you don't understand what happened and they're going to lose, like they did against UIC, which incidentally, the UIC on the flip side, UIC, good Lord, that probably saved their season right there, beating UIC because, that put them 5 out. They now since that time they've won an additional 4 games and they're back in the conversation in the middle, and they're back in the middle of the pack, and there's still the matter of those top 6 seeds making getting home games in the the what is it, the 3 through 6 seeds get the first round home games, right?
Well, currently, but there might be a wrench in that. I don't know if we're going to get to that. I'm sure
Oh,
that's on the
we will
docket here.
definitely get to that because that one is confusing because we'll talk about that a little later. We're talking
There
about
might be a
Detroit
wrench in this whole
Mercy.
thing all of a sudden. Yeah.
We don't know what's going on. But we'll talk about that a little later with Detroit Mercy because that one's kind of a little bit of a, I don't know what's going on with that one. But yeah, but UIC still has, well, even better, they're still in the conversation now that they're 6-5 to get that home game. Now, I think as it stands right now, unless somehow, because again, there's such a it doesn't seem like a chasm right now, but it's kind of a really wide gap. 2 games is no big. 2 games is pretty hard to overcome. So you got 2 games between Wright State and Northern Kentucky, and then you have 2 games currently between Northern Kentucky and the Logjam. As of right now, it's UIC who's 6-5, but you can also have, as of today, you might have Green Bay go 6-5. You might have Wright State's Milwaukee 6-5, which would actually kind of narrow the gap to 1 game because that will have meant that Northern Kentucky lost. Does it happen? Who knows?
What we really need, Bob, is to start planning ahead and get one of our smart people like John or Kyle to start figuring out all the different tiebreakers and start plugging them in, because this conference is going to end and we're going to need to figure out a bunch of tiebreakers to even know who's hosting these first
rounds. Know what? And here's the thing though, and I don't know if, I'm sure you remember this. Like back in the day, it wasn't last year. I recall last year they didn't do this, but last year, not last year, but in years past, the Horizon League has actually been really, really good on breaking down the tiebreaker scenarios. And then somehow, like last couple years, they haven't done that. So we've been sitting here in the dark thinking, all right, what's going on?
Well, we've been pretty good about staying a couple steps ahead of them, so let's just keep doing it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but I just wanted to point it. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. For those of you scoring at home, the Reach of the Horizon podcast just recently had Jordan Burnfield on, friend of our show, who was on 2 weeks ago on their podcast. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. I just thought that was funny.
And
that looks familiar.
I'm going to shout out North Report, because they, much like I broke a story last week, they broke a story that they were sitting on before anybody else could get the official word. So I like all these all the Horizon fans doing the dirty work and showing why we do what we do. I'm loving it.
Kyle Craven, over at Norris Report. Obviously, he got the, and for because he broke the story that Dantes Walton was going to play against Green Bay. He did play a little. He's still a little rusty, but he definitely did play. So now that once Dantes Walton kind of gets back into the groove of things, I'm gonna say watch out.
Sometimes
I
Sometimes it
really,
takes the player a couple games. I've seen it firsthand recently.
it's true. You're absolutely right, because that was the same thing happened. Um, the same thing happened with Cleveland State and Torrey Patton and Jalen Hill. Both of them took a couple of games to kind of get they were both hurt at the beginning of the season, and it took them forever to kind of get back to 100%. So yeah, I mean, and look at UIC too, because
Well,
that
and
Marcusati was hurt, and he took a
sometimes
little. Jordan Blunt took a while. He was coming off of knee surgery, for crying out loud, a knee
sometimes
injury.
it's not an injury. Sometimes it's a reinstatement of eligibility.
Sometimes it's a reinstatement of eligibility, as was the case with Oakland against Detroit Mercy.
The
Yeah,
rivalry game,
Rashad, the rivalry.
12-2.
I'm sorry, but yeah, we're at the point where the Metro Series rivalry is about like the Ohio State Michigan rivalry. It's a rivalry, but it's like a rivalry, sorta. That there's a lot, there's obviously some bitter feelings between the two fan bases, but in reality there's only one team that's been dominant. I mean, that's the only comparison I can make is Ohio State Michigan.
Absolutely.
I mean, Ohio State and Michigan fans can't stand each other, but Ohio State keeps winning the games.
And do you know what? I mean, I live in Michigan. I'm not a Michigan football person, but I hear a lot of talk about it. And the thing that we keep hearing here in Michigan that I believe, and it's the same thing happening in this Oakland Mercy series, is Ohio State cares more. It's more important to them, and they prepare all the time for Michigan. Everything's, that's the most important thing to them. And for Oakland,
Yeah.
and Campy has said it, that's the most important game. When the season ends, he starts texting his players how many days until the Mercy game. It's that important to him. And I get it. And you know what? They every game they play like that.
Yeah. You would hope that they would play every other game like that, but they definitely play the Detroit Mercy games like that.
And we all know that Oakland's having a bad season. I don't like to talk a ton about Oakland because they're at the bottom of this league right now. There's no reason, but we did have a rivalry game. Rashad Williams went up for 37.
Yeah.
And they needed every point from it. I mean, he really did a nice job.
Yeah.
What was really interesting, and actually hopefully a positive for Oakland, and a little bit of a silver lining, is Trey Maddox didn't play in the second half. No one saw it, that even Campy didn't catch it. He went down with a concussion. Somewhere.
Yeah, I didn't realize that too, because I saw that on Twitter. It's like, yeah, Trey Maddox is in the stands in his street clothes. I'm like, did he get abducted by aliens? No, he's as I understand it, he's in the concussion protocol right now.
Yeah, there was some legitimate concern, like, because Carrick
I didn't
was down on
realize.
Meteor Row.
Did anybody even catch how he got hurt though? That's insane.
I was watching the game. Obviously, I didn't see it. Campy didn't see it in the game, and Carrick was tweeting me from Media Row. He's like, he's just like not out here. What's going on? Like, and then Carrick had told me that Trey had gotten chewed out right before the half for setting some bad screens or something about screens. And then I started getting messages that Trey was in street clothes and sitting with his parents. He wasn't even on the bench and blah, blah. I'm like, did he just like up and transfer mid-game? What is going on here? But concussion protocol, all seems well. Trey has told me that he's fine, so hopefully that continues and he passes through protocol. But you hate this. I mean, concussions are no joke. But for someone that did not take Division I offers for football to try to stay healthy, this is his second concussion. So you got to hope that stops. But
that's
the silver lining,
yeah, that's true. And but again, as you mentioned, even without Trey Maddox, all of a sudden Rashad Williams, the Rashad Williams I knew would show up eventually, showed up.
He not only showed up, he showed up with like 30-some friends and family. He's from Detroit, obviously. Yep. He's so happy to be playing. I mean, obviously he played at Callahan twice a year or once a year anyway, but like just being back and everything, he put on a show, and he had to. The game was well called, in my opinion, as far as even between both teams, but it was a very lot of fouls called. So big men in trouble the entire game. Really slowed down.
I have to. You see that? We got to talk about that, because this is the second time that I've seen an Oakland game and it's been a freaking foul fest. How does that keep happening? I'm curious.
I think some of it starts where you see Oakland's size and you just assume that they're gonna be big and physical, which they should be. I mean, Xavier Hill Mays, never want to talk ill of him because he scares the hell out of me as a human. He's just such a big person. So I think people see that and they just start kind of calling the foul. But there was three or four calls of flops, to the point that people were getting texts for flops. Like, it was just a really weirdly called game. I really felt that it
Yeah.
was in both ways. It sucked for both teams, but it wasn't a lot of fun to watch. It wasn't a good game to watch. Don't get me wrong. It was two pretty bad teams. But
Yeah.
what was great was when Maddox did a great job on Antoine Davis, as he always does. He's really, really good at defending him. But then when he went down, Kevin Kangu came in, and we haven't heard a lot from Kevin Kangu in Oakland land. He's been pretty quiet since he lost the starting point guard gig. But
Yeah.
we've been told he's a great defender, and he did a great job in Antoine. I mean, Antoine got his, but if you watch the game, it wasn't easy. He didn't shoot well. It was a lot of free throws.
Not at all.
He had another awful game, and I only feel somewhat bad because anytime I watch a Detroit Mercy game, whether it's Oakland or just tuning in, Antoine Davis plays terrible when I watch. So he's asked me not to watch anymore, but I had to watch Friday. So sorry, not sorry, Antoine. But
You're always gonna watch that game, for crying out loud. I mean, so yeah, and I understand that. Yeah, I understand post game. Antoine came out, Mike Davis didn't for the post game.
yeah, so Mike Davis, I guess Campy did his post game press conference as he always does. You know he's available. And then, I mean, all of our coaches in the league, I think, are really good about showing up to the press conference and doing their job. I guess the press sat there for like almost an hour and a half for waiting for Mike Davis before Mike Davis Jr. showed up. I mean, that's just weak. Mike Davis, if you can't show up to your we've watched college players, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, lose on buzzer beaters in the conference tournament and have to go sit in a press conference and answer questions. If you can't sit your ass down after losing your rival again and answer questions to local media, what are you doing? What does that show?
Yeah, that one, that's a head scratcher to me. I really don't understand. And by the way, Antoine Davis was 9 for 25 in the game. Yeah, he got 26 points, but he had to fight for every single one of those points. And man, he was 4 for 14 from beyond the arc. I mean, it is. But I think we brought this up last episode. When he attempts more than 20 shots, it is not good for Detroit Mercy.
Yep,
it really isn't.
Well, and in his defense, though, and I'll even defend Mike Davis here. Nobody else for Detroit Mercy showed any interest in being able to stay on the floor. Both Miller and Brandon got in foul trouble, but outside of those guys, nobody had any interest in making shots. Calipari was cold. Marquise Moore didn't show up. It was a bad game for them.
And again, it's one of those Detroit Mercy games where the expectation was Antoine Davis is going to save us. And like nearly every other game this season, teams are game planning for that. And that's what happened.
Yep.
And they didn't, and he got his points, but the other side made it very hard for him. Very, very hard.
Well, as an Oakland fan, I'm hoping this game helps them turn the corner. Like, they've got to build on that, and I'll believe it when I see it. But
so yeah, that's
one good day. One good day.
Yeah, one good day. There you go. But yeah, that's insane because Rashad Williams went 7 for 16 beyond the arc. This is, and I really hope this changes. I really do, because Rashad Williams took 17 shots in the Detroit Mercy game, and 16 of them were from 3-point land. All right, I gotta, and he went to the line 15 times too, but I don't understand this game plan for Rashad Williams. Rashad Williams, I know, can do more than shoot 3-pointers. I know this. Matt, you probably know this.
Oh, and he got to the rim a few times. I saw those glimpses. They were great.
I saw him go to the rim once. The rest of the time he was out in the arc. Well, which again for Detroit, for Oakland, that's actually a blessing, because prior to Rashad Williams, you weren't exactly getting a whole hell of a lot of productivity from 3-point land. The exception to the case occasionally being Blake Lampman. But
Occasionally. Let's not get me started. I don't want to derail this whole podcast on that situation.
so, but it seems like, and this is the part that, and when Rashad Williams was at Cleveland State last year, that was Dennis Felton's game plan. Just have Rashad Williams parked out in the 3-point line, beyond the 3-point arc, kick it out to him, and hope and pray to God he actually hits the 3-pointer. Now, of course, in the Cleveland State situation, that was different because you had Tyree Appleby running the front, running the point, whereas in Oakland you don't have that. But still, Rashad Williams is doing this exact same thing. I'm just trying to wrap my head around knowing that Rashad Williams can, in fact, shoot inside the 3-point arc. He can do it. We've seen him do it. We don't see him doing it very often, but we've seen him do it. Well, why is that happening? Why is it happening 2 years in a row?
I can't explain the Cleveland State side of it, although it's probably somewhat related. I can tell you why at Oakland, though. Because the problem at Oakland, well, outside of not having a point guard, has been that with multiple bigs down there, even though we have the side advantage, the lane gets clogged. So with Rashad, parked outside there, everybody has to come out a bit, and it gives the bigs more room. So they really don't want him down low because at that point everyone can collapse. That's really the what it comes down to is it allows the bigs still to have more room because you can't sag off of your guard. When it was Kangu out top there who wasn't shooting well, then they were able to sag down. It's easier to double the bigs, all that. With Rashad, you can't leave him open. You can't leave Blake Lampman open. As much as I'm not a huge Blake Lampman starter, that whole story, the kid can shoot, especially open threes when it's coming from the post. So you can't leave him open. And with two options out there, it really frees up the paint a bit more for the bigs to get theirs. So that's why Rashad is doing what he's doing for Oakland. That's what he was brought there to do.
I understand. But again, I mean, we know he's a shooter, but he doesn't. Can't we bring him closer?
No,
I mean, he can hit. He can hit I mean, what makes us not be able to have him, in the perimeter, have him pop up a 15-foot shot? You don't have looking at Oakland, it's basically either they're shooting from the 3 or they're shooting in the paint. Unless I missed something, that's what they got.
No, that's intentional. That's a campy thing. That's a campy thing. He hates the mid-range game. If you're gonna it's and I don't have numbers, but he does because he spouted them before, like what the percentage is on a mid-range jumper. He would rather just see it from 3, where if the actual percentage goes up from 3, or he wants it down low. He hates mid-range jumpers. He'll pull players. I think Trey Maddox gets in trouble for it all the time. And Trey's got a pretty good pull-up mid-range game. He doesn't want it. It's not a high percentage shot that he wants to see.
That doesn't make okay. It's a higher percentage shot than chucking them from the arc. It really is.
But the percentage of makes from 3 is higher than the mid-range make.
Yeah.
So at that point, he'd rather, if your percentage is higher from 3, he'd rather see you take the 3 and get the 3 points or 0 versus probably not 2 or 0. I guess. He's got
at the end of the day, it worked. At least for Rashad Williams, it worked. Because looking at the stats from the Detroit Mercy game, Rashad Williams hit 7 3-pointers. As a team, Oakland made 8. Blake Lampman was the other one who made the 3-pointer. Nobody else shot a 3. Nobody else besides Rashad Williams and Blake Lampman really shot a 3-pointer. Brad Brechting shot a 3-point. His shot attempted a 3-pointer. I'm still scratching my head over that. I know you've mentioned that he does do that from time to time. It's still pretty head scratching that he does that.
He's got good range. I don't want him to, but he does have some range actually. I think Brad wishes he was a point guard. There was a stretch there when Oakland was struggling with the press, and Brad was bringing the ball up the floor. He was the press breaker, and I think despite being a 7-footer, he really just wants to be a point guard.
He really does, but to be fair, he actually did have himself a pretty good game. He got a double-double. He was 11 points, 12 rebounds. So he'll be forgiven for that 3-pointer that
And
3-point
and he did a
attempt. I'm
lot of it
sure.
while in foul trouble, which was that was what broke
That's
the
true.
game to what it was that was a closer
Yeah,
game than the final score showed. But when Brandon and Miller both fouled out,
yeah.
that ended everything. Oakland, I mean, Hill Mays and Brechting played almost the entire game with 4 fouls, and they
They
were able to
really
avoid
did.
that
Yeah, they were out of trouble pretty early. So
early and
that
often.
was that was a that was definitely they were definitely behind the 8 ball on that one. So
And
yeah, that's definitely a thing.
and the
So
other
yeah,
fact is that
so
and then I'll be done because I'm done talking. Was Daniel Oladapo showed up, like the Daniel Oladapo that we saw earlier in the season? He showed up, which helped keep those guys out of foul trouble. And Oakland put on a better game. That's what it came down to. And then they beat Mercy again. And done. Thanks for
so
coming to my TED Talk.
there you go, there you go. But yeah, before we, because I want to talk a little bit about Youngstown State too, because they're kind of an interesting situation,
You bet.
specifically at home. You have to explain the whole transition from Grizz Talk OU to Horizon Matt. Not that I don't mind, obviously, but it seems like that requires a little bit of explanation.
It's not that much. So I started that Twitter 4 or 5 years ago, something like that, trying to get more people to post on the Grizz Talk OU message board. That's where the idea, and I don't run that, but I was just trying to get more people talking Oakland basketball.
Sure.
And then Oakland Twitter kept getting bigger and bigger, and I stopped posting on the message board for over a year because I got annoyed with Oakland fans. Oakland fans love the sunny side of things, and when you don't have something nice to say, you shouldn't say it at all. And these are just kids and blah. And you know what? I wasn't there for it, and I'd had enough, being called out as a fan, like I'm a bad fan, and I had enough, so I stopped posting there. But I still had the Twitter, and that was great. And then within the past couple weeks, this team's been playing incredibly poorly, and I'm gonna say they've been playing poorly and point out what I think. And I always say I'm a dumb fan, and I mean that. What I say shouldn't matter, but I got sick of Oakland fans, coming after me like I'm a bad fan again, and I just said, okay, well, now I'll just be a fan. So I'm trying more and more to be a big time Horizon fan, and so I just changed the handle. There's no reason for me to support a message board I don't post on a whole lot anymore, and
True.
I don't need to just be an Oakland fan because I don't really care for the way Oakland fans view things. It's a small mind thing, and I don't want to be a mid major. I don't want to treat everything like a mid major, and it's a mid major mindset of these are just kids when things are going bad and blah. Like no, no, no. If these kids on Division I scholarships can't handle a stupid fan on Twitter calling, saying that they're playing poorly, then that's half the problem. That's my opinion on it. And a lot of people don't agree, and that's fine. So I just figured I would remove myself from Oakland fandom and just be a Horizon fan.
There you go.
So there it is.
There it is. There it is. So here we go. Matt Dudek, Horizon League free agent fan. There you
I
go.
didn't enter the portal, but I'm just trying to be a bit more neutral and embrace even more of the Horizon roundtable side of things and try to watch more games outside of Oakland, although I'll always be an Oakland fan first.
Yes. Well, there you go.
So that
By the way, I want to clarify something because apparently there seems to be a bit of a confusion here, and I don't understand it. I am a Cleveland State fan. Okay, period.
Yeah.
I've been a Cleveland State fan the whole freaking time. I just wanted to clarify that because there seemed to be a little bit of confusion on that one by a couple people at least. No, I root for Cleveland State, Kevin. I've been doing that. I'm one of the few people who do. There are maybe 3 people who actually tweet about Cleveland State during actual games. Me, Phil Daniels, and Tom Muskowski. That's generally it.
I wouldn't know that Tom's tweeting because he blocked me because he didn't like what I had to say.
Oh. And see that troubles me. Just fun, again, totally troubling because actually that's pretty hilarious because again, I think, and we've talked about this before. I've said way worse things to him, way worse things, and
People
still
have thin skin with me. I don't know why.
He unfollowed me, and that's fine. I still follow him because why not? But yeah, I don't. Yeah, he doesn't follow me anymore. He didn't block me, but yeah.
Oh, I got the
Whatever.
block.
You got the block. You must have. Yeah, I think we are. I think yeah. So no, I'm not gonna lobby to get you unblocked. Sorry,
No,
man.
I just don't care.
I'm pretty sure Tom hates me too. So I'm
Tom
cool with
doesn't.
that.
In my experience, Tom never provided anything new. He was really just kind of calling play-by-play of the game through Twitter 5 minutes behind. like didn't really help me much, so it's fine.
Actually, he's ahead of me because I'm watching ESPN Plus, and apparently there's like a 30 to 60-second delay. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm not gonna get on for that. That's actually fine for me. I'm good with that. Nobody else is doing it at Cleveland State. He might as well. Shit. But yeah, so I wanted to so I just wanted to clear that confusion up because apparently there seems to be a couple people who think that I'm something other than a Golden State fan. Yeah, I am. It may not seem like it sometimes, but I am. So, learn to pay attention, people. But I wanted to talk about Youngstown State. Youngstown State, the House of Heart Attacks lived up to its name on Thursday against UIC, as I knew it would. Thankfully, they turned around and beat IUPUI by considerably more, so they didn't have to wait for a last-second shot. It is IUPUI. We got to start talking, and as good as Youngstown. The big challenge for Youngstown State obviously is going to be on the road because they're not a great road team. In fact, I think they won like maybe 2 games on the road in non-conference, maybe. That winning on the road has not been their forte over the last in the Jared Calhoun era. I mean, they can win win at home, which is an upgrade from the Jerry Slocum era. But I think their big thing is they got to get over that hump. But they won't have to worry about it next week because they're playing Cleveland State. But the big on the flip side with IUPUI, they got swept. Cleveland State basically, we talked about how unsustainable Marcus Burke and Jalen Minette going off for 70 points apiece. You knew that wasn't sustainable. Cleveland State exposed that and basically neutralized both of them and won that game. And they couldn't get anything going against Youngstown State. So we're kind of at a point with IUPUI where they really have to think. They should really start thinking about next season. They really need to also start thinking about who's going to coach this team next season, because I don't think it's going to be Byron Rim. He's in the room, but I don't think he's going to be. They're not going to get. It seems more apparent now that he's probably not going to get the full-time job.
The problem is then you're essentially starting over again. You got to build continuity at some point.
I understand that, but at the same time, I mean, well, and if you think about it, but they were never going to. But at the same time, if you look at kind of where IUPUI is at, where they're at in terms of who is going to be back next year and what they're going to be working with, does it matter? And I don't know if it actually. And let's be honest, I don't think it's going to make a whole hell of a lot of difference, because I think once you had Cameron Justice, who wasn't going to be around next year anyway. But if you look at next year for IUPUI, you still have you've got Jalen Minette for a senior year. You still have Marcus Burke. Senior, he's gonna be a senior next year. Grant Weatherford is gonna be a senior next year. They have Elijah Goss, who is actually the only Horizon League player averaging double figures. Double figures in the Horizon League in rebounds. All those guys are coming back. So whoever takes over, and I really don't think it's going to be Byron Rim and Mike DePersia. I think he's going to be a good guard in this league, as well. So you have that kind of foundation coming back next year. I really think that they'll actually do much better next year if they get the right coach in.
Or does the coach leaving give all those kids an excuse to go take that transfer and go try to go big time when your Burks and your Minettes and all that?
The problem with the problem with Burke, Burke might grad transfer. I just thought of that. Burke might grad transfer because he had to sit out a year because he was a Campbell. That's the only thing I could think of. I don't know if anybody else. I mean, again, it depends on the coach. It depends on who's going to be the coach next year. I really do. If it's the right coach, then maybe we can have the conversation about these guys being back. And I do think there is a possibility of all these guys coming back.
There's absolutely a possibility. I mean,
Is there a possibility that they don't? Yeah, of course.
Is there a possibility
Cameron,
that they like Rim and they want him to stay, and that's what keeps those players there? Maybe.
Maybe, but I mean, as far as the, but it always comes down to wins and losses, and as far as we have seen, it hasn't gone very well for them in terms of that. So I don't think that it's going to be a senior laden team next year. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of seniors on this team. So when you look at that, you think somebody, whoever's coming in, there is a good possibility that they're gonna get a lot of production out of these guys. And I think IUPUI next year is infinitely better than they were this year, especially with the pieces in place that they have now. Again, if they have the right coaching, I don't think Byron Rim is the guy. I think Byron Rim was kind of put in the situation, a no-win situation. He's just making the best of what he's got, honestly. So that's my opinion on it. By the way, I want to circle back to Detroit Mercy because I'm glad you reminded me of this. There's a little bit of confusion with Detroit Mercy at the moment. Are they eligible for the conference tournament?
I guess not, because I trust Tony Paul, and Tony Paul was talking to Detroit Mercy officials and said, we have not been told that we are eligible.
Which is interesting because Mike Davis himself actually said, did he said it? I'm trying to remember where he said it on the radio. Where he said it.
It was in a post game, I think.
It was in a post game. Okay.
That's when he actually, shows up for post games. Apparently, he says things like that. So maybe that's why he didn't show up to the Oakland post game. They thought he'd say something that wasn't accurate.
Okay. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he was probably in a bad mood. So he obviously didn't make. Yeah, because Don Owen from the Northern Kentucky Tribune, he's the guy who broke the story. Because it was the first time anybody heard about it. And then fast forward to Tony Paul saying, no, that's not the case. So we were like, well, maybe Don Owen is wrong. And he's like, Don Owen actually came back at us and said, well, ask Mike Davis. I'm like, well, okay. Well, we would have loved to have asked Mike Davis, but he didn't show up to the post game. Oops. Because Carrick was there, I believe. Yeah. So,
Carrick was there.
So he could have asked, but I don't know. I guess the mystery continues. Are they or aren't they? I don't know.
Carrick made Greg Campy laugh. It's actually worth checking out the Campy's press game or post game from the presser. Carrick made him laugh.
Ah, okay. Yeah. So, all right. So, just wanted to throw that blurb in there. So next week, so we'll be back. Next week we'll have, like I said, we'll have Mark Forden from Numbers Don't Lie. In Chicago. We'll have him on there. We'll have him on. 2 weeks from now, we're going to have Todd Buckingham back at Major_Mid. He'll be back because he's clearly the neutral party. And so I'm looking forward to that. I also wanted to make one last thing. I know one last mention of one last programming note. Matt, I know you're going to be the month of March. You will be actually traveling. You'll be traveling around the country. At least I think you are.
Yes.
And will not be available and will actually be off the podcast for the month of March, which will be sad because, that's
all my fans will be so sad, but it'll be
however, I will point out, as we are making it an annual tradition, March 1st, the week of March 1st, we're going to have Jimmy Lemke back. And we're going to talk about the all-conference team. So, so I'm looking forward to that myself, obviously. So you don't want to miss anything that's coming up here. So until that point in time, you can listen to all episodes of the podcast on HorizonRoundtable.com. We're still working. The whole Horizon game night thing has not worked out so well, but that's kind of a technical difficulties thing. We'll work on that. But the podcast is always on HorizonRoundtable.com and on any and on all podcast all podcast apps at this point in time, and you can still pull it up on your Amazon Echo or your Google Home device. So that's going to do it for us, and thanks for listening.